Hey everyone, it's Alexander from Swab here. I hope everyone out there is staying safe and is staying healthy. I want to thank everyone who's watching this video and who follows along sort of tips videos that we put out. For today's video, there's a topic that I do want to talk about, obviously, and this is one thing that we've been asked quite a bit about, especially in the whole COVID era, and that's group interviews. So I want to talk about sort of some of the pros and cons of group interviews coming from both the mindset of the employer and the job seeker. But group interviews can be a great sort of stage to a one-on-one interview. It's a great way to connect with the group and really, separate the strong candidates from the weaker ones. But a group interview is just as it sounds. You have multiple applicants who are being interviewed at the same time. And it challenges the candidates that are applying, and it can be, even challenging for the interviewers as well. That's a lot of candidates and a lot of questions and answers that you have to sort of absorb and really, think quickly about which candidate is stepping out or standing out to you. But group interviews can bring, something fresh to the hiring process. To decide, you'll need to obviously weigh the advantages and disadvantages of doing group interviews, and this is for more the employers, obviously. So one of the if you're weighing the pros and cons, one of the pros would be that it's a time saver, and you're getting a chance to interview multiple candidates at once. So obviously one of the biggest benefits is how quick it is. So rather than having to set aside a certain amount of time every day to be doing one-on-one interviews, you can actually do this rather quickly and get a sense of multiple applicants at once, which I know for a lot of employers who have other things they need to deal with, that time can be a real lifesaver. But obviously then on the flip side of that is the cons is, it's less time that you get to know these individuals. So the downside is, yes, there is obviously the time component. As an employer, you are saving a lot of time when you're interviewing multiple candidates at once, but you're really getting sort of less time to spend one-on-one with the candidate and really get to know that individual and really get to see their strengths. So, if you have really strong candidates, then oftentimes during group interviews, these employers will pull aside those strong candidates and set up one-on-one interviews with them. But that's just another thing that you have to do. So obviously, yes, you're saving time in the group interviews, but it's really you're not getting to know the individual as well as you probably should be, and it more often than not would lead to another interview, which would be a one-on-one. Now going back to another great point with group interviews is, and sort of like I just mentioned, the strong ones. You're right, for employers, you're able to identify the strong candidates from the pack sort of really quickly. Now obviously, if talent is shining in the group, and you have a bunch of candidates that are really strong, well then, the employer will direct their attention to those candidates. And this can mean that, stronger personalities will command the room, while the weaker candidates might sort of fade out, and you'll be able to, really separate who you want to move forward with and who you do not want to move forward with. And, one of the things in group interviews is the skills and qualities of these candidates really kind of merge in group interviews, and it'll really show signs of leadership, competitiveness, communication, and assertiveness to these employers. Now, on the flip side of that, one of the cons to that is not every personality will shine and thrive in a group interview. They say that the loud applicants might dominate the group interviews, but that's not necessarily, the best thing for the quieter candidates who are still strong but might not be comfortable in that sort of an environment. So it really depends on the situation, but a lot of candidates do feel sort of like they aren't able to shine with that pressure of other candidates who are surrounding them. So that is obviously one of the cons, is you might not see these strong personalities come out in a lot of the candidates. Now, one of the pros, obviously, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier with the saving time and being able to separate the good candidates from the poorer ones, is that very thing is you can compare candidates while you're doing the interview. So, you might have a better sense of who you think would do better in that role based on the types of conversations you're having in this group setting. So while, obviously traditional one-on-one interviews, really, you can really only compare candidates based on some of the notes and some of the memory that you have of the interview. And sometimes it might not be relatable. But in a group interview, for example, you can hear each candidate's answer to your question in the same session. And you can also see how candidates interact with one another and in a high pressure setting. And so this would give you a great opportunity to see what this individual might be like when they're interacting with customers or clients. So it's a great way to compare and evaluate the candidate's relative strengths. And it's a really unique thing where you can see the strong candidates and determine who you think is really going to be the one that's going to put their best foot forward. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about today in regards to group interviews. For me, I've when I was in high school working part-time, I actually had a group interview and I thought it was an interesting situation. I remember kind of thinking, this is a little odd, but it also took some pressure off where I had an opportunity to see what some of the candidates were saying and really see and feed off of their body language. So it kind of made for an interesting interview experience. But that said, it's not always like that for other people. Some people might prefer group interviews. Some people might prefer traditional one-on-one. So it really all depends on the employer and the candidate. But this was something that we've been asked quite a bit about, and I thought it would be an interesting topic to share and cover. So I really appreciate those who have watched this video, and for anyone who's got questions about group interviews, and I'm always curious to know what people's thoughts are, and if you prefer group interviews or if you prefer more one-on-one traditional. But I'm going to cut the video here. So thank you, everyone, and continue to check out our channel for more video updates. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.